for their children.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me come around in a different direction if we can have a look, because you say both says a lot of good things, and I'm trying to weigh up the situation now to see which one is really most effectively needed by the community. So I'm going to step up the pressure. For both of you, we'll step it up. Both of you, if you are going to be re-elected, and if you are going to be elected, give me your three best shot of services that you are going to mount up of what you are currently doing, or what you prepare to do to upgrade the other side that has been developed. I want to see something a little bit more into it. Top three. If your new service that is coming to better, can you give me a...
Sure. So the top three things that we'll be working on when I get reelected. Yes. Is that correct?
Correct.
So the number one thing that we have to do is create jobs here, right? I mean, in this recession, our community and our country was hit very hard. So we've got to create jobs. You know, we have a bill that's a bipartisan bill, the Partnership to Rebuild America Act. We know how to create those jobs. Let's rebuild our infrastructure. Let's rebuild our roads, our highways, our bridges. Put people to work. Give them a paycheck, not an unemployment check. So, number one, I would work and we pass the Partnership to Rebuild America. Number two, I talked about the Small Business and Family Relief Act. Let's give that money right back to the families in our community and small businesses. That's a 3% reduction. We would get that fixed. And the third area that I think is critical is education. I grew up going to vibrant public schools and so forth, and we've got to give control of education back to local communities, back to the school districts. So I would work as hard as I can to make sure we're making those investments and giving control back to communities.
Thank you, both gentlemen.
The number one issue in the United States today is the fact that the economy is performing very poorly in large areas of this country. And the consequent job creation and opportunities do not exist. The number one priority for me in running for Congress and when I'm elected will be to put in legislation that improves the opportunity for our job creators to go out and grow their businesses and hire people. That includes tax reduction, regulatory relief, and the like. We did that before when I was here before. If you recall, in 2001 and 2003, I was part of the team that passed some of the largest tax cuts in the history of this country. We also provided regulatory relief, and lo and behold, the economy boomed. Unemployment was down at 5%. Kids were coming out of college and were able to get jobs. So, tax relief, regulatory relief, and the other thing that I think needs to be focused, we need to figure out how to rebuild the stature of the United States in this world. Ladies and gentlemen, that has gone downhill. Leadership matters on this issue.
Congress is viewed as dysfunctional by the nation due to the congressional partisan voting and not necessarily voting in the best interests of the country. What would you do to combat this feeling if elected to Congress?
That's a great question. There isn't any question that this Congress is a do-nothing Congress. They run around talking about, things that don't affect yours and my everyday life. What I want Congress to talk about is how to get the economy rolling, how to get the job creators, unleash the job creators, let them go out and create jobs. Let's quit trying to micromanage them from Washington. The fact of the matter is that the Congress adopted a 3,000-page bill called the Affordable Care Act. They hadn't even read it when they voted on it. It was passed on a strictly partisan vote, meaning it was all Democrats. And you and I, the everyday citizens of this country, get burdened with trying to untangle it. We lose our doctors, our premiums go up, our deductibles go up. I just think it's time for a little common sense in Washington that worries about what's going on in Sacramento rather than what their Wall Street supporters, special interests, Nancy Pelosi pals think they should be doing.
Look, we operate in divided government right now, so Democrats and Republicans have to figure out how to work together. One of the first groups I started when I got to Congress, and I'm a leader of, is the problem solvers. 23 Democrats, 17 Republicans came together just saying the status quo doesn't work. We've now grown that group to over 94 members, and let me just share a small story of what we can get done. Working with a fellow problem solver, Chris Gibson, a Republican from New York. He's a retired Army colonel. I'm a Democratic doctor. We were having dinner together, talking about what I think is one of the most horrible things that's happening in America, how we're treating our veterans, the backlog. The Department of Defense has one medical record system, the VA system has an entirely different medical record system. They don't communicate. We wrote a simple bill that said by 2017, you have to have a single medical record system between the DoD and the VA, housed on a secure server on the cloud, so your records would move transparently over to the VA. Chris was on the Veterans Committee. We introduced that bill. He got it attached as an amendment, and it is now law. That's what can happen when Democrats and Republicans are willing to work together. We'll serve our country.
Thank you both.
In light of the Ferguson situation, I would like to start with Congressman Olsey. There's been a national discussion on how the situation was handled. On a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, how do you feel that President Obama handled the Ferguson and still handling the Ferguson situation, and how would you do anything differently?
The issue in Ferguson is probably one of the most difficult we face as a country, because when something like this happens, the rhetoric gets very hot very fast, and people get their backs up, and by the time they get their back up, in many cases they don't know what the facts are. So one of the things I'm hoping that now outgoing Attorney General Holder and his team will do is establish what the facts are as to what happened. If the facts show that this young man was treated, just gunned down, somebody needs to be held accountable. Just pure and simple. And I don't have any. I would apply that to anything. I don't care what color your skin is. It just doesn't matter. If the police acted inappropriately, then somebody's got to be held accountable. And I'm hoping that Holder's department can get the facts established so we can get to a solution for this problem. It's a great question.
What happened in Ferguson is tragic, and it speaks to the challenges that we still have and still face with regards to race relations. Right here in California, the tragedy of the CHP officer beating the homeless woman speaks to how we still have a long ways to go with regards to race relations in the United States. We have to talk about these things, and we have to move forward. We have to make sure everyone's civil rights are respected. That has been a key thing that we've been working on. Here in our own hometown, we had the brutal murder of two Sikh gentlemen in Elk Grove in my hometown. That crime remains unsolved. We've been working on making sure that we address these civil rights issues, that we work with the FBI to make sure hate crimes were categorized. So they didn't lump everything together, but that Sikh Americans were categorized, Hindu Americans, etc. We have a long ways to go in making sure people understand that America is a diverse country, and we respect all faiths, all religions, and give everyone that credible chance.
Thank you both for that. Before I go to personal privilege, for those of you who do respect Mr. Holder is stepping down as our Attorney General. We hope the next person will be as fair and equitable and provide justice to all Americans as he did. For some of us, we just applaud Mr. Holder for what he did as the Attorney General of the United States of America. And now we
Okay, now that we are touching around the Obama, I hope it's not going to be a great topic for everybody. But I just want to bring to our attention, because to me, I'm looking at the relationship of those two congressmen. The president's and his strategies of the airstrikes they have done in the ISIS and the military positions. Do you agree for this, what he's doing, or do you agree for his decision on this matter? Is it healthy for America in a way that does the Congress really supporting his ideas on this? I'll get
first last time.
I think I know better.
Sure, I'm happy to answer. You know, I'm on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and we've been looking at this deteriorating situation in the Middle East for a while now. There's no military solution. That's an American-led military solution on the ground in the Middle East. The Iraqi people have to be willing to fight and die for their own country. That said, there is a need for American leadership here and things that only America can do. I did vote to give the president 2 months to put together a coalition and to train and equip Syrians to fight for their own country. This has to be a Middle East solution. The Saudis have to step up to the plate. The UAE has to step up to the plate because we're not talking about months. We're talking about years. And we know what happened last time when there was an authorization vote to go into Iraq. We were there for decades and we spent trillions of dollars. We can't do that again.
I just want to compliment Congressman Barrett. It's the first time I've heard him really articulate anything on this situation. I appreciate it, given his membership on the International House Committee. The situation in the Middle East has challenged every world power from day one. And it is hubris on our part to think that we're going to be able to solve it by picking and choosing amongst the winners or the losers. I supported having the president take action, for instance, when the Yazidis were driven up into the mountains and were suffering accordingly. I regret that it took a year to get to that point of dealing with ISIS. I do hope the coalition of the unwilling that includes such powerhouses as Albania and Estonia and the Netherlands, UAE, Bahrain, I hope that works. But at the end of the day, if you don't put somebody's boots on the ground to hold the land you bomb, we're going to be right back at this in a few months.
Continuing on the world problems, the Russia and Ukraine situation, to me, it seems to be almost a no-win situation. As a new congressman, what are your thoughts on what should the president be doing or what direction should we be moving?
Okay, this one is my turn. What we're seeing play out around the world is the consequences of America retreating. This is a classic example, again, that leadership matters. We saw this in the 30s when Hitler rose in Europe. And we're seeing it again across the world, in one case with al-Baghdadi in Iraq, and another with Putin in Ukraine. When America retreats, the world devolves down into chaos. This is a classic example where leadership matters. What we need to be doing is articulating a clear vision that our allies can accept with the knowledge of certainty of American action, and our enemies can know the same, that if they challenge our national interests, or they go out and attack Americans traveling overseas or elsewhere, or our allies, there are going to be consequences. Right now, what you're seeing is the consequence of a policy that imposes no cost for bad behavior.
Leadership does matter. Last week we had the Ukrainian president in Congress addressing a joint session of Congress. We've been talking about this on the Foreign Affairs Committee. We have to send a strong message to Vladimir Putin that this is unacceptable. We also have to do that in conjunction with our allies in Europe, because when we speak together, we speak in a much stronger voice. So we have been ratcheting up the sanctions, ratcheting up and pushing forward. We also are leading on the issue of Iran trying to get nuclear weapons here. In House Foreign Affairs, we've led the effort to ratchet up the sanctions that have actually brought Iran to the table. Now's not the time for us to step back from those sanctions, but negotiate from a position of strength, because the world needs American leadership here. And when America leads, the world is a better place.
Thank you both. This is our final question about Congressional panel. If you will, ready?
The final question for me would be, why should we vote for you?
Are we also going to do a close, or is this our close? This was question. Sure, I'll take it. I ran for Congress for the same reason I became a doctor, to put people first, to serve my patients and to serve my community. That's what I've done for 19 years as a physician here in the Sacramento community, and that's certainly what I've done in the last 2 years in Congress, trying to put people first and serve the community. We're at our strongest when we're in this together, when we're looking out for one another and we practice the common good, strong public education, when we understand that it's better to give someone a paycheck, not an unemployment check, and we're creating those jobs. When we're addressing the injustices of communities like Ferguson or what happened in Elk Grove, where we embrace the diversity of who we are as America, that's when we're at our best. And I'm going to continue to lead by putting people first and honoring the promises that I make.
I would answer your question by emphasizing to you that leadership matters. That people who are aspiring to these offices and hope to serve here need to have a clear vision of where to take this country. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, our country is off track badly. And it's a function of the leadership that's in Washington today. That's a fact. I want to go back for a moment